Hello. Welcome, friends, to this webinar from Thrive Today entitled When Life Feels Heavy and God Feels Far. My name is Christy Haring, and I just want to thank you on behalf of our team so much for taking the time to be with us today. Thrive Today, we really want to support you in living your very best life. And we do that through helping you to build skills, relational skills that are central to having healthy relationships, to experiencing joy and peace, and having connection with God and others. And today we're focusing on this piece of connection with God as we have a conversation with our president, Chris Coursey. And we're going to be talking about really why it can be difficult at times to feel that closeness, that connection with God in general, but especially during times when life feels heavy or we're stressed and tired. So we're going to take a look at that and also talk about how relational skills play into all of that and give you a couple steps for moving forward. And I just wanted to say before we start, I was talking with Chris about, I was praying this morning over this webinar, and really what I felt like God impressed on my heart is like, Christy, people need this. We need support and being able to keep our connection with God and grow our connection with God. This is something that we really all need. And so I hope that you will find this encouraging today. I know I'm really looking forward to it. We are going to be taking Q&A at the end. So if you're on with us live on Zoom, you can put questions into the Q&A feature. If you happen to be on Facebook Live, you'll want to hop on to Zoom if you want to be a part of the Q&A time. And there's instructions in the Facebook description for how to do that. So with that, I'm going to introduce Chris. So Chris is our president. He's our co-founder. Alongside with Dr. Jim Wilder, he established our 5-day intensive premier training of relational skills. And he is the author of several books, including 4 Habits of Raising Joy-Filled Kids, 4 Habits of Joy-Filled Marriages, and the Joy Switch. So Chris, so glad to have you with us today.
Hey, thank you, Christy. I'm really excited about our time, and I just really resonate with what you shared, what you felt like the Lord impressed you with, and just, yeah, I think we all need some wind in our sails, some joy and some hope, and I'm just looking forward to our time together.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we are able to have this conversation and just bring some encouragement. I was thinking about the Christian faith. It centers around relationship with Jesus. And yet, Chris, this is a very common thing to struggle with feeling close to him. And we were just talking about there's a gamut, right? Some people might feel close to him in some seasons, and then there's other seasons where it feels harder. But I know I've also talked to a lot of people where this idea of feeling close to God, of being able to have this sense of like an interactive relationship where you really feel his presence and feel like he talks to you. For a lot of Christians, that's a very foreign concept. Like, I just don't even have a grid for that. But regardless of where someone falls in that spectrum, could you talk to us a little bit about why you think this is such a common struggle for us?
Yeah, I think, the big $1 million balloon in the sky is that this is relational, and God is a relational God. And I think, at least for most of the Christians I interact with, including my own story, is we all want that closeness with God. We're taught, and somehow, or at least we learn, that if I read about God or have thoughts about God, that somehow should be equated with sharing minds with God. And so what we do here at Thrive Today is we're actually teasing some of this out, looking at relational skills to connect with a relational God. And I think a lot of us just really long for that closeness. We long for that peace and that joy, and just we long to have hope in this interactive relationship with Christ. But we just we didn't learn this growing up. No one really taught us this, or somehow we just learned that certain people were just touched by God. And so certain people could have conversational interactions with God, but the rest of us can't. And so I know for me, growing up in the church, no one ever talked about like interacting with the living God or hearing God or talking with God. it was kind of like I was learned to just send postcards to God and just keep sending postcards to God with my needs and my pain and my struggles. I never knew you could actually like interact with the living God. Like, this is the good shepherd who interacts with the sheep and loves his sheep. So I think where we're going today is going to resonate with a lot of people. For some of us, this is just a new concept, that there's actually some relational skills involved in having an interactive relationship with Christ. But above all, I think we're all just hungry and hopeful for that closeness with God. We're eager, but just we don't maybe have those examples, or we just don't have the practice or even some steps. It's just, some of you are just touched by God and you can hear him, and the rest of us are just not touched by God. Like, that seems to be a common feeling for a lot of people. And I hope today people really hear that, an interactive relationship with Christ is possible. And that's the message we want to really convey, that this is possible, Christy, and that's good news.
Yeah, that is. And so what I hear you saying is two things. One is that some of us maybe just didn't even have the expectation for it in the first place. It's hard to have something that you can't even imagine is possible. And then for some people who maybe have that expectation or think it's possible, we might be just lacking the skills to actually develop it. And think of with any relationship, right? We have to develop it. It's not like it just magically happens all the time. Good marriages, they take work. You actually have to put in effort to develop the skills to have a healthy marriage. So it shouldn't be surprising. It's the same thing with God, but we don't necessarily talk about that a ton in church. So can you talk just a tiny bit about some of the typical ways that we do connect with God, and which are all very good things, praying, reading your Bible, but how those things often don't work as far as creating that sense of closeness and connection?
Yeah. Part of it is, it's a very good thing to read scripture. It's a very good thing to memorize scripture, to meditate on scripture, to think about scripture. And many of us, it's a very good thing to pray. Like, we should pray. We're supposed to pray. And many of us practice many of the disciplines, and we fast. And we do the things to try to really grow in Christ. And so what we want to shine the flashlight on today is really how we learn to expect and anticipate that God actually has thoughts to share with us. That I think it's interesting in the story of Adam and Eve, where they sin, they're hiding, they're running from God because, they hear his footsteps, he's coming. Oh, let's go hide. God's the one pursuing them. And you see this in scripture. God actually pursues us. He wants a relationship with us. And I like your example, Christy, that when we think about a marriage or a dating relationship or good friendships, any kind of relationship involves getting to know the other person and conversing and listening and sharing minds with that person, sharing some joy with them and so forth. So there's this reciprocity. And that's what we really want to help people discover and learn and grow in, is this reciprocity. So many of the things people are already doing to try to grow in their faith are good things, very good things. We would say they're foundational building blocks. But the neglected piece that I hear from so many people is just the understanding or just some practical ways to be able to engage the living God. And I can remember in my own journey seeing those people who could hear from God and just seeing the fruit of that and going, wow, why doesn't God talk to me? What do I have to do? I must just not be a good enough Christian, because these are really good Christians that are hearing from God. And so I just remember thinking, how do you do this? What does it look like? And I remember many nights just saying, God, I just want to hear from you. And would you talk to me? And I think at some level I was expecting this audible, well, Chris, I'm right here.
Right.
I didn't know what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Because I just didn't have anyone really teaching me or helping me to unpack what's the process look like. And so, I hope what people are hearing today is that you continue to do the good things that you're doing to grow and express your faith. What we want to add is this skill or this practice or this habit of learning to connect, listen, notice, sense, perceive God's peace and God's presence. And that often, as we're going to talk about here soon, often it's more about training our attention and training our brain's ability to focus and to recognize something than it is about anything else. Because again, this is a relational God that pursues us, even though we're hiding in the weeds sometimes from God, or we're overwhelmed, or we're just disconnected. He's actually pursuing us. He wants interactive relationship with his children. And that to me is just a glorious reality. And probably most the people that I do ministry with have been in the faith for a very long time. Many of them have, even have some seminary degrees. And yet they're shocked to discover that Jesus is actually glad to be with them. And so these are often people who've been preaching about God for years. And so this is life-changing. Like, this changes your life. This changes your relationships. This changes your character. And it expresses who God intended and designed you to be. This is the good stuff that grows in this garden.
Yeah, that is all super helpful. And I had this thought, don't know whether it's the right time to share it or not, but we had talked a little bit about this too, that with all this is just like you were talking about, training our attention, how to tune in to him and to him being there with us. And I know for so long, I was just so stuck on like, well, I have a problem and I need you to solve it. So I put God in this box. So interacting with him was all about, would you just give me an answer? Yes, no, maybe. Would you just tell me what to do? Would you just make the pain stop? Versus training my brain to tune into the fact he's here right now and enjoying his presence. And that, really, as I've learned to do that, that is my greatest need, is to feel like, oh, he's near and I can sense him being near. And anyway, so that shift for me helped a lot, because I know a lot of Christians, we struggle with that. Like, we put him into a box as far as what it looks like to interact with him or to hear him. And that can be a challenge as well.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Christy. And I know for me, early in my walk, I treated God as I treat aspirin. And, I was just in pain and I wanted relief. And when I sometimes didn't get that relief or that quick fix that I wanted, how do I interpret that? What's wrong with me? Because surely it's not on God's end, it's on my end. So what is it that's going on? And so, what we're after is learning to enjoy God's peace and God's presence in the good times, the bad times. And in relationship with God, a lot of good things grow. We do enjoy peace. We do get relief. And there's a whole lifestyle that's available here that grows in that interactive relationship.
Yeah. And see, there's some people like you are like, what's wrong with me? And then there's some people like me last night when I'm up with puppies at midnight and cannot sleep. And for a second, it didn't last long, but for a second, I'm like, God, why don't you just help me? So I was, sometimes we get angry with God, when he just doesn't make it better, fix it. So I think, we might find ourselves on both ends of that, but it's a work in progress for us all, right?
Yes, that's right. It is.
Just me being vulnerable with my midnight can't sleep over puppies and asking God to rescue me from my pain.
Yeah, sure. And I think a lot of us resonate with that, definitely, because he's the one, right, who could fix it.
Totally. So Chris, let's talk a little bit about these last couple years. They've just been hard, right? Nobody expected COVID to kind of beat us up the way that it has, but it has changed our world. It's changed our lives. And you've talked about what you're sensing as far as seeing it draining people quite a bit. So I was just hoping you could talk to us a little bit about what you're observing happening in a lot of people as far as kind of running on fumes and how that affects our ability to connect with God.
Yeah, Christy, we hear from a lot of people, and people are feeling it. They're feeling tired. They're feeling maxed. They're just feeling zapped. Their batteries are not charged. And for many of us, just being relational with the relational God it can feel like a challenge in and of itself under good conditions. So under the good times, it can still feel a little bit challenging trying to live what we and our colleagues would call an Emmanuel lifestyle. But with the last several years, people are just feeling like their plates are full. There's just too much going on. And your brain's kind of like an amplifier. So it's either going to amplify the good stuff or it's going to amplify negativity. And so your brain also looks back to predict what's next. And so when we look in the rearview mirror of the last few years, many of us just feel stretched beyond our capacity. And we're feeling done. We're crispy. And so under these conditions, it makes it harder to stay relational. It makes it harder to direct my attention. And it's harder to quiet. It's harder to hold on to joy. And so this is a demanding season. And even those of us who've been living and practicing these habits for, over 20 years, it's hard. I think everybody feels that. And we don't always know how to interpret it. I love your example, Christy. Like, yeah, how do I interpret it's midnight and I'm having these issues with my dogs and I'm tired, I need rest, I've got, a big day ahead of me. I think a lot of us struggle to interpret, where is God and why is he allowing things? Why isn't he fixing them how we would like him to fix it? And how we interpret these things inevitably comes in the dynamic where we're trying to feel close to God, right? Because your brain looks back to predict what's next. So if you look back here and you go, well, God, I don't know where you were because I don't have your peace. And so these things sting and these things hurt and these things drain my battery. So now I'm trying to find where you are right now, but I don't know how to reconcile this back here. And because I don't know how to reconcile this back here, it interrupts how I'm navigating the present moment. And so one of the big, points I make in the Joy Switch book is that when your brain focuses on your pain, your problems, your upsets, and the people or the things that's robbing your joy, just thinking about those things can put your brain in enemy mode, as Jim Wilder would call it. So when you're in enemy mode, you're not going to feel close with God. You are not going to feel like he's with you in this particular moment. You're not going to be able to even notice what is he doing under these conditions. So what we have, Christy, is a perfect storm for many of us. We want closeness. We want that intimacy. And we want the hope that God is right here with us and he's working and he's doing something as it relates to us. But we don't quite know how to cross that bridge in order to get there. So where we're going today is just what are some practical things that can be done to, in a sense, help our attention be able to focus and notice, like Moses, why is this bush on fire and it's not being consumed? Like Moses paused and noticed. He didn't just keep walking. He paused and noticed. And that's kind of the approach we have to take here, even under the conditions that our world is in right now, is how do we pause? How do we notice where is God in this? Mm-hmm. And how do we share minds with God to be able to sense his thoughts, his peace, his joy, just all the things that we need. But it's important to acknowledge we are feeling stretched. And so what can be a challenge under easy, calm conditions becomes even harder in the storms. And where is Jesus in this storm? And what is he doing as it relates with us? Those are good questions that many of us, we want answers, but more importantly, we want peace. We just want his peace and that awareness of his presence right here with us.
Yeah, that was excellent. Thank you. That was a really great explanation of that. I'm curious for people that are watching with us, if you're resonating, like, yes, I am feeling like a little bit more maxed out, a little bit more tired. Feel free to interact with us in the chat if you would say, yes, I am feeling that too. That's me. We'd love to hear from you guys. And, I know that it's just something that even we have just observed is just people are just like a little bit more worn out, a little bit more crispy, a little bit more tired. And that piece you said, that was so helpful about how we are interpreting the difficult times, how I am able to interpret it. Again, that is going to play into my ability to further interact with God. So all of these things really, they play together.
They do.
And you started bringing up some relational skills. You talked about relational circuits. You talked about quieting, some of these things. So Chris, I just want to talk a little bit about how relational skills play into this, how they can help us. Really, I don't know. I think for me, it would have felt odd years ago to think that there are skills I need to develop to be able to interact with God. Like that would have been like, don't you just interact with God? What do you mean you develop these skills? Can you talk to us a little bit about how relational skills play into all of this?
Yeah, sure. And I mean, you're right. It doesn't sound like a very spiritual thing, right? To say we need relational skills in our walk with Christ. But if we think about it, I don't know if anybody's ever had like a leg cramp, but I know I've had leg cramps before. I used to run track and play sports, and I can remember like getting a leg cramp or a cramp in your foot. Oh, that's the worst, because if you have a shoe on and you've got a cramp, and it's so hard to focus in those moments. I know when I've had a leg cramp before, like you don't even notice who's around you necessarily because you're focused on alleviating that pain. And so we just want to make the cramp go away. And until that cramp disappears or dissolves, we're focused on whatever's loudest. And in that moment, what's loudest for your brain is the pain. And so what relational skills do is it helps us to do many things at the same time. So relational skills help us to pay attention to how we're doing and to notice and have a little bit of self-awareness of, am I feeling peaceful right now or not? How am I doing? What do I need right now? Right? Okay, I've got a leg cramp. I need to stretch my leg. But relational skills also help us to notice what's happening in our environment. And so relational skills are really helpful for training our brain's attention to decide what to focus on, what's important to focus on. And when you start practicing skills like, getting relational, quieting, growing joy, what you're doing is you're actually training your brain, your mind, your body, how to be able to stay peaceful and hold on to peace no matter what's going on. And so relational skills help us to say, you know what, I'm tense right now because I'm shallow breathing. And so let me just take a nice deep breath for a moment and let me notice what's happening in me and what's happening around me. And so we just have to learn, how do we be relational, right? You see a lot of examples in the Bible where people are not relational in the moment. They lose it. And when we lose it, our brain is kind of in a cramp, so to speak, and we're not able to track what's going on. So if I'm when I have a leg cramp, if I'm not noticing what my friends are doing around me, I'm probably not noticing what Jesus is doing as I sit there with the leg cramp either. And so, skills like joy and rest help us be able to find a rhythm that works. That's why a lot of our trainings just really helping people to experience high energy joy and low energy rest. And some of us can do one or the other, but not both. So some of us tend to be high energy, but we don't like calm down very well. Or some of us are just low energy and we can't really engage the high energy stuff. So what I find when people start practicing relational skills, it helps to train their mind to start noticing what they need and what's happening around them, and start noticing, what is God doing when you're building joy? What is God doing when you're resting? And relational skills like appreciation kind of thaw out some of the frozen stuck places in us so that we learn to focus on some of the good stuff. So as I said earlier, when you focus on what's wrong and you listen to reports about what's wrong and you think about some of the hard stuff or the painful stuff. That puts your brain out of relational mode. So you're pretty much guaranteed you're not going to notice what Jesus is doing as it relates to you when your brain is out of its relational sweet spot, as I call it in the book. And most of us don't have or don't make it a habit of trying to connect with Jesus as a way of life. We tend to go to Jesus like we would dial 911 to get an ambulance to show up or a fire truck. And so if our habit is going to Jesus and trying to feel close to God when there's a problem, those are tougher conditions than just noticing on the good days. What is God doing as you sit here on a good day while you're calm and peaceful? So relational skills help to grow our capacities so that we can live with that peace and that awareness of God's presence no matter what's going on. And my son and I just returned from a Joy Switch weekend in Atlanta, and it was fun to just watch a group practice relational skills that many of them were just not used to practicing. Some of these skills were new for some of these folks. And so what they were noticing was, wow, being able to build joy and rest and get relational actually feels really peaceful. I haven't felt this peace in a long time. And that's when you start training people to notice God's peace and presence when people are really in an ideal scenario. And then with practice, that starts to translate into the harder places. But ultimately, when I got back, for example, from my trip, Christy, it was a 12-hour drive. My son and I, we were both pretty tired, full weekend. I noticed it was really hard to engage my loved ones, my other son and my wonderful wife. I was like, wow, I am tired. It is like really hard to focus, to listen, to attune. It's just very difficult to engage. And so it helps to understand this can happen with people, but it can also happen with the living God. And so as we learn and grow these skills with people, the good news is we can also learn and grow these skills with God. These are relational skills because we are relational people made in the image of a relational God. And we just need a little bit of practice so that we can translate these interactions, both building joy with our loved ones, but building joy with the God who's with us and who's glad to be with us.
Awesome. That's really good. And again, at least for me, for some of us, this might again be a bit of a shift in thinking how do I help facilitate relationship with God? To think of if I build my capacity to weather the ups and downs in life, build some joy, my ability to rest. Again, I wouldn't have made those connections before. So it can take a little bit of shifting in our thinking. But it's just so pragmatic and helpful that God designed our brains in such a way. And when we develop our brains and really fuel them the way he designed them to be fueled and fed, then it really helps us in our relationships and interacting in healthy ways and building stronger bonds and connections. So I do want to mention, I apologize that our chat is not working, and I am so sorry. I checked our Zoom settings and everything's correct. So I don't know what the problem is, and I apologize because we want to hear from you. If you have something you really want to say, feel free to put it in the Q&A, but it just won't show up in our chat feed, and I will try to find out what's wrong later. So I apologize about that. So Chris, I'm hoping that we're going to talk about some next steps, some things for people that we have to offer if this is something that they want to grow in. But I just want to ask, what would be on your heart to share with somebody who is struggling in this area? Some people might really be feeling tired, discouraged, at a loss for where to go from here, or maybe just a bit hopeless on the ability to connect with Jesus. It's just not even going to happen. Why should I bother? What would you say to someone struggling?
Yeah, you know what? God made our brain it's a magnificent organ that does so many things. And one of the things it wants to do is constantly interpret and make sense out of the world. And so for many of us, if we struggle in this area, we don't have that closeness or even that interactive relationship with Christ that we want. Our brain's interpreter tends to come up with some really unhelpful reasoning. And so often it's just because we think, well, God is, doesn't love me, or he's upset with me, or I'm not a good Christian. I don't have enough faith. I don't have enough. Like, we come up with many reasons to try to make sense out of this. And so I think for many of us, we just get this perpetual hopeless despair because we've tried, we don't know what's wrong, we don't know why. And frankly, oftentimes it's just because we're tired. It's really hard to have an interactive awareness of Christ when we're tired, because your brain's relational engine just doesn't want to stay on very easily or very well. And so sometimes we're just tired. Sometimes we just need a little bit of practice. And so with the Joy Switch weekend we practiced a lot of appreciation and a lot of storytelling exercises before I even tried to get them to practice some of these interacting with God skills. And so sometimes we just need a little practice. Sometimes we just need someone to sit with us.
I don't know if Chris is frozen.
And help to troubleshoot. Did I go out? Sorry.
I don't know if you froze or I froze. Sorry.
All right. Yeah, I just noticed it was locked up.
Sorry about that. And then I thought it was me. So they had silence for a minute. Sorry about that, everybody.
It's probably mine. So I don't know where that broke off, but I was just encouraging people, like, there's good reasons for why this may be hard, and not to beat ourselves up. Sometimes it's just we need practice. I've been learning to play the guitar for years. I'm a very slow learner, but I if I went to try to join a band at a concert, it wouldn't be pretty because I don't have the practice. So just keeping in mind that we just need practice. It doesn't mean we're bad Christians. It just means we need practice. And that's where relational skills are very helpful. So just being tender with our weaknesses, just recognizing what we need. Sometimes we just need rest, or sometimes we need to practice a little more appreciation. Sometimes we just need to learn how to try to stay in our relational sweet spot. There's lots of good reasons why it's a challenge, but I find helping people practice relational skills really opens up the pathway for people to start living with that sense of God's delight, God's joy, God's presence. And it's wonderful and it's amazing, but just be tender with yourselves. The world's a hard place right now on so many levels. Life can be very hard. So trying to find, people that would practice with us, or maybe even join a small group where you're practicing some relational skills, that goes a long way. And I hope that this lens on sometimes we just need to strengthen relational skills helps to interpret some of the struggles that people might be feeling, Christy. Because I think a lot of people are just feeling the fuel tank's a little low, and that's what a lot of us are feeling. So take the steps that you need to try to charge your battery, and a little bit of practice can go a long way in this journey.
Awesome. Yeah, and we will be giving you guys steps in a minute. I do just want to say that no matter what, there can be so many different reasons that play into it, even trauma or, bad past experiences, things like that. And no matter where it is you're starting from, there are things that can help you just move a step forward. Sometimes we just want that instant fix. And that's not typically how life works, but movement forward. That's what relational skills give us, is that ability to progress, to go forward in our relationships. And so just want you to be encouraged that there are things that you can definitely do no matter what is blocking you. So Chris, you had a quick exercise you wanted to lead us in before we jump into next steps and our
Yes, thank you. So first thing, I just want to invite everybody, take a couple deep breaths. Sometimes we just have to remember to breathe and breathe deeply to help calm and quiet our mind and our body. So just take some deep breaths as you sit there. And then I want you to think about 3 things you're thankful for today. So we'll just pause for a moment of gratitude. Just think of 3 things, people, experiences, whatever. It can be anything. Just take a moment. What are 3 things you feel grateful for today? And I'll just give everybody a moment to think of those 3 things. Okay, hopefully we've got a couple things in our mind now, and kind of helps to just try to like even visualize what are those three things. I like to think of it of looking out windows. So if you're looking out windows of the three things you're thankful for, just try to like visualize. If it's a person, think of their face. Whatever that is, just take a moment, try to picture those three things you're thankful for. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to pause and we're just going to invite the Lord to bring to mind a gift that he's given us. So this can be anything, just a gift that he's given us. So just pause and ask the Lord to bring to mind a gift that he's given us, a gift that he's given you. And I'll give you a few moments. We'll just give you a few more moments to just think about a gift that God has given you. Notice how that feels in your body. All right. So you've got your three windows of gratitude. Now we have a gift that God has given you. So what I want you to do now is just take a moment, enjoy the three windows of what you're thankful for, and just try to kind of savor the gift that God's given you. Just see if you can kind of scan those thoughts for another moment. All right. Now what we're going to do is just pause and just ask the Lord to bring to mind any thoughts about why he gave you that gift. So we would simply say, Lord God, what would you like me to know today about why you shared this gift with me? Just take a few moments and just talk to the Lord about what he wants you to know about why he shared that gift with you. And we'll just take a few more moments. But if you get lost or distracted, just go back to your gratitude or go back to the gift. But for the rest of you, just continue to just see if there's any other thoughts the Lord wants to bring to mind about why he decided to share that gift with you. And then we just pause and notice, how does this feel in our body? Anything that brought us some peace? How does that feel? How's your breathing, your muscle tension? Just notice how some of this peace feels in your body. And we're just looking for the peace. So whether it's some of the gratitude or the gift or any thoughts that could be from God about the gift, we're just looking for what about all of that brought you some peace or some comfort. Just think about that for a moment. All right. So you could take a nice deep breath and just a few final words on that exercise. My goal is just to help you kind of be able to get some relational activity going for your mind and your body, what I'd call your relational sweet spot. And we're just accessing those files. When you access a joy file, I like to say it's like your brain is reliving a moment. So taking a moment to just access some of these joy files can really help to bring some peace. And then when we're just trying to take a few moments to interact with the Lord on that, we're just looking for any thoughts, anything that brings some peace, because he's the Prince of Peace. So we're looking for his signature, which is peace to our mind, peace to our body. And we practice. So if you got distracted or this just didn't work, that's okay. This is practice. These are the kinds of exercises we walk people through to just try to build a little capacity and familiarize ourselves with what peace can feel like. And so most people, the hard part's not actually sharing minds with God. The hard part is just getting in our relational sweet spot and staying there. So we can feel a little peace and joy, but then we get distracted with an intrusive thought that brings, anything but peace. So part of this process is just training your attention to be able to hold on to the good stuff, so you're in a good place to be able to share minds with God and just notice some of God's thoughts. So yeah, hope and pray that this could be the start of something good for you. But Christy, I know you've got some thoughts and maybe even some steps that people can do to grow capacity. How do we grow more capacity?
Yeah, no, this is great. So first of all, I want to mention, just tagging on to what Chris said. He already said it, but it's totally okay if you're doing this and you're like, oh, this is kind of hard, or I didn't feel peace or whatever. I find that I get more peaceful when I realize I'm just trying to notice what's happening. Like, just notice, oh, okay, maybe my heart was racing a little bit more, or this or that. That's okay. That's what the practice is for. We practice and we grow and grow with time. So totally okay wherever you're at with that. And I just want to read to you, before I get into some next steps, just a little testimony that I found was really encouraging. A woman wrote this to us a couple of years ago. And she said, before I found Thrive Today, I struggled with a relational connection with God. I had no idea why, as I was a lifelong believer. I found Thrive Today and Life Model on the internet and found life-giving answers. Learning that God created my brain for his joy and how to be relational with him and others has been transformative. All of the courses I've taken through Thrive Today that always include practice have given me peace and joy. I now receive joy from a manual and pass it on. I know without a doubt that my Redeemer lives in my heart with infectious joy. So this is a woman who lived like 50 plus years, just really not being able to have that relational connection, and things have totally shifted for her. So I just love that there's encouragement no matter where you are in this journey, that there is always hope for transformation and growth in our relationships with God. So it's very encouraging. I'm going to share just a couple next steps with you. And the first is that we have a follow-up event to this webinar, because we want to put more tools in your hands. We are the practice people. We want to give you things that you can do practically. So we have an event called Defeating Your Barriers to Jesus, Relational Pathways to Connection. And this is a 3-hour event where Chris, first of all, he's going to be sharing just a little bit more of his heart on this topic, and just pastorally to us, that I think will be incredibly encouraging. But then he's going to get super practical and lay out some different pathways, kind of like what he did today, but some different pathways for how we can build connection with God or become more in tune with his presence and where he is, what he's saying. And what's great about this is he'll give us some different tools that you can test out, because you might notice, hey, if I test out this pathway, it doesn't work so great. But if I do this one, oh, that works really well. So it's kind of a troubleshooting. There'll be time to practice and try out some different things. So we think this will be incredibly encouraging for you guys. And I just want to mention that even if you don't feel like you're struggling with your connection with God, this will help give you tools to go to an even deeper level though with him. So this is going to be beneficial to anybody who just wants to keep growing in their relationship with God. So then we also have a fall habit builder group. So if you want to plug in with practice groups, that's Chris's phrase. I used it for you, Chris. Plug in with practice groups. Chris has created habit builder online courses where he has created practices and exercises so that you can develop relational skills with him as your coach online. But what we've created is these groups where people can go through the courses together with somebody leading them through it, and that way you get to practice with people. So if you are looking for community to develop these skills together, we have another habit builder group coming out in the fall. So keep your ears open. We'll be announcing it with like registration toward the end of the month, but we just wanted to let you know that's coming. And this one will be focusing on skill 13, which is see what God sees. So it's going to hinge around this topic of relationship with God. And then if you just want to do something at home to develop your relational skills and help build this foundation that will help with your relationship with God, the Joy Switch book that Chris mentioned would be a really great tool. He has exercises at the end of each chapter, so I highly recommend that you check that out if you do not have it already. And if you want more information, you can check out our website at thrivetoday.org. We have a lot of different resources on there, or you can email us at info@thrivetoday.org if you want to get some more if you have specific questions about a resource you're looking for that we can help you with. So with that, we are going to say goodbye to Facebook Live and jump into our Q&A. So if you have been viewing this on Facebook Live, thank you so much for joining us. All righty. So Chris, we have a couple of questions that have come in, and let's see here. Okay, first one. How do I encourage a friend who's a missionary and seems to have a lot of demonic activity? She and I have language in which we can share together regarding joy and rest.
Good question. You know, I find that the enemy does not like to make this journey easy, growing this interactive relationship with Christ. I find that that's the accuser works really hard to kind of disrupt this process. So if it's external demonic activity, then we always intercede and just take authority over it. I like the example when the Philistines took the Ark of the Covenant and from Israel, they captured it and it actually worked against them. And they decided to send it back. That's a good way to do spiritual warfare. Lord, would you just, turn around that which is meant for evil be used for good, that the enemy would count his costs, and like this would actually like diminish his power. So doing warfare like that, I find that's a really good lens and a principle for spiritual warfare. If it's just personally a lot of demonic, again, I often find there's good reasons for it. Just, Lord, what is, is there something in me that I can give you? Is there something that is giving the enemy some ground or permission or a foothold? And so just, taking some time to pray with someone. Then the other thought is just obviously there's something good that God wants to grow in this garden, and the enemy is not excited about that. So I don't see spiritual warfare as necessarily a bad thing. I actually see that the enemy overplays his cards. So you can do some of that intercession and just really try to practice joy and peace and appreciation. Under those conditions where it's just really hard to try to practice, or there just seems to be a lot of resistance. I find that sometimes just growing capacity goes a long way as a first step. Let's grow some capacity. That's where the exercises from Joy Switch or just any of our resources or even our colleagues, just doing some foundational exercise to build capacity. And then let's start noticing, what is God doing in the midst of this? What should we know? So yeah, part of it's training your attention as well to just be able to feel some peace and some joy. But just inviting God to turn around that which is meant for evil to be used for good. I find it's a really effective way to be praying.
Great. Thank you, Chris. This was a great question. Is in connecting with Jesus, could it also just be a sense of calm and peace, not necessarily a voice or an image?
Great question. And it's interesting because your brain can process with words. Your analytical center can process with words and information. Your relational brain processes with images and emotions and feelings and sensations. So sometimes God will just bring thoughts to mind that matches our analytical brain. And hey, I feel these thoughts. I feel like God's saying this. Other times it is just, I'm feeling this blanket of peace over me. And I just feel relief and totally, God is God. He knows what we need. And there's times he'll use words in our thoughts. Other times he will use maybe some of the nonverbals, the comfort, the peace, the relief, those kinds of things. So you know what? Both are good. I'm looking for peace either way when I pray with people. So I'm looking for peace with words and information, peace with just feelings, sensations, emotions, and those kinds of things. So yeah, that's a great question.
That's cool. And it also, as you're saying that, Chris, it makes me think of just the joy and the journey of learning to communicate with him and what it feels like when he's talking, what it sounds like, just like with any relationship, you kind of start to learn how someone talks or their different body languages, or, you start to learn to read each other better. And so it's kind of this fun adventure with God of learning, how does he tend to talk to me, and starting to pick up on oh yeah, when that happens, I've noticed that's God talking to me in the past. So I think that's a fun exploration that we get to do with him.
It is. It's an adventure, isn't it? It's a good adventure.
Yeah. Is it helpful to first name the pain, problems, and people that are interrupting the relationship with God and others, or take yourself and others through gratitude and peace first? That's a really good question.
Great question. Yeah, sometimes you have to experiment. Some people feel like they need to name it, and until they can name it, they're just not going to be able to lean into the process. Other times, some people just need to stick with, hold on to the peace and the joy, hold on to the gratitude. Let's keep practicing. So sometimes you do need to pause. Okay, let's name this. Let's give the Lord these things. Maybe there's some fears that come up. I'm trying to get close to God, but I'm realizing I'm actually afraid of what he's going to say. Then I would pause and say, okay, you know what? Why don't you just share with God what you're afraid is going to happen? Let's just put words to that, because I know their brain's going to keep going into enemy mode when they've got this iceberg of fear that they want to be close to God, but they're actually afraid of what he's going to say or what's going to be on his face and so forth. So I just, you just understand, you want to keep them in their relational sweet spot. And if something's going to hinder the process and put them in enemy mode, sometimes we just press the pause button, put words to it. But I find just talking to God about it. So I'm trying to get you to engage God. So if you have some fears, I will say, why don't you just tell him right now what those fears are? So I'm trying to engage him. And the work of Carl Lehman, Jim Wilder, and many of our colleagues and friends have also come up with a lot of really good troubleshooting to try to, what to do when. But simply, you want people to stay in their relational sweet spot. And if they get warmed up, but then they go offline because of, this, that, or the other, then sometimes we just need to pause and interact with God and just say, God, I give you my fear because I'm afraid of what you're going to say or do. And so just, keeping that lens helps to kind of determine what needs to happen next. But we want them to be able to stay in their peace and their joy and just stay relational. And sometimes we just need to stop and talk about something and get it off of our chest before we can go back to the practice.
That's really good. So Chris, what about when you, I'm just trying to think checks and balances, because I know sometimes we can get a little wonky, with what we think God is saying to us, and some anchors that can help us stay grounded in just testing what it is that we're sensing from God and making sure that it's in line with his word. And, because we're all capable of hearing random things that might not be from him.
Oh yeah, you know what, that a word of wisdom on that, honestly, is we always specify who are we talking to, because the accuser comes as an angel of light, right? We know that about his character. So sometimes he likes to pretend to be Jesus, and he likes to pretend. So I'm looking for, what's the fruit on the tree? What's growing from this interaction? Is it growing peace? Is it making things worse? Is it bringing up more fear? So we're looking for, does this line up with God's character as we see in the scripture? Does it match who we see Jesus as in the Bible? And what is the fruit of it? What is it doing? What's the effect of it? And does it as Jim Wilder called, does it pass the peace test? Jim wrote a book about this called Passing the Peace. So I'm looking for, does it resonate with me as I'm sitting here with you? And there's many times where I've maybe walking with someone, I go, it sounds right, the words are right, but there's something about this that just feels off. Let's test it. And then I will specify, we are praying, we test the spirits, the Lord Jesus Christ, who's sinless, blameless, holy, and pure. So it's like, let's specify who we're talking to here. And more times than not, as you approach it with that lens, it gets very clear whether this is really God that we're interacting with, or whether this is a false spirit, or, even just places in someone's mind that are very confused on who Jesus is. So we always want to test it and make sure the fruit on the tree matches what we're looking for.
Awesome. Another really great question: is the relational sweet spot the same for everyone? Like, is it having your joy switch turned on, or is our relational sweet spot unique to each person?
Yeah, it's a super question. So everyone has a relational sweet spot, but how we get and stay there looks different for everybody. And so what helps you to stay in your relational sweet spot? I've shared before, I had a friend that trying to practice this in an office did not work for him. So I would meet him at the beach, and we would sit on the beach for an hour, and we would practice this because he just needed a different environment. So meeting people where they're at and helping them discover what helps you get into your relational sweet spot of joy and peace and stay there with your relational brain online. So what gets there looks different. Some of us need high energy activity, so maybe we go for a walk when we're practicing. Some of us, we need low energy, so we turn off the music and we find a quiet place. So that's the process of discovery. And that's where the joy switch information really is helpful. Like, what is it that helps you get in your relational sweet spot and stay there? But as far as the brain is, the mechanisms are the same universally, but that relational engine in your brain actually has to be firing on all cylinders to do this. And there's often good reasons if it's not. But where we tailor it for people is what helps you, and what does that look like, and how can we try to create that environment that would help you do that. Now, over time, as you build the habit, then I can start doing this under varying conditions. But in the beginning, we just want to try to take it one step at a time and help people identify what helps, what doesn't help.
Awesome. Very good. Well, this is all so helpful, Chris. Thank you so much for the conversation. I want to thank you all for joining us. I'm really sorry about the chat feature. I went into Zoom and tried to figure out what was wrong with the settings, and I think I figured it out, but it wouldn't let me change it. So we'll look into that so that next time we can hear from you, because we would love to hear from you during the webinar. I did put into the chat, because it's letting me chat, I put in the links that we mentioned. So we are having a follow-up event that will be really practical and helpful. So you can register through the link, but I'm also sending out a post-event email that will have these links as well. And there's a link to the Joy Switch. So thank you so much. We are so glad to have you here with us having this conversation. And Chris, thank you so much for leading us today and sharing great insight and wisdom with us on this topic.
Yeah. Thank you, Christy, for leading us. Thank you, friends, for joining us. And we just pray that God will water all the seeds planted in your garden, that it would grow lots of good fruit and lots of good things on the vine.
Awesome. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and we will see you again in the future. Bye-bye.